Hey gardening friends, I'm here in my front yard garden and today I'm here to talk about mulch. Tim from Middleton, Wisconsin wanted to know what kind of mulch do I recommend for garden beds and how do I apply it? Great question, Tim. How did you know that I love talking about mulch? If you've ever seen pictures of my garden, you probably noticed that my garden is always covered in mulch. That's because bare soil equals weeds and I hate weeding, so I keep the soil covered. For my garden beds, I like to use marsh hay because that is what is available locally in my area. I've been getting my marsh hay from the same supplier for many years and I've always been really happy with it. You can also use straw, leaves, grass clippings, or anything else that's available in your area. But be careful of your source. Don't buy a hay bale from somebody that just hayed a weedy field and then that means you're importing new weeds, more weeds into your garden. So you have to make sure, ask some questions, see if you can get some hay bales or straw bales that are weed free. If you have any doubts that some hay or straw that you already have might have some weed seeds in it, my suggestion is to leave the bales out for a few weeks, a month or two, let them get rained on and see if anything sprouts out of the bale. If it does, take a look at it. If it looks like a weed, get rid of that bale. Sometimes when you have a straw bale, it can be oat straw, and that means a little bit of oats will sprout out of the bale, but if you pluck it out, then there's a little oat on the end. It kind of looks like grass. So oats you don't really have to worry about. If you're going to use grass clippings, make sure you don't treat your lawn with chemicals. You don't want to put those kinds of chemicals on your vegetable garden. And then if you're going to use leaves, I have found that whole leaves tend to mat together into this big mat that basically doesn't let a lot of water through. So when I've used leaves in the past, we try to chop them up a little bit with our lawnmower so that they have a little bit more crumbliness to them and they're not going to mat together. Those are my suggestions on good mulches to use for your garden beds. You don't want to use wood chips on your garden beds. They're better for the paths. Wood chips have a lot of carbon in them, so if you use them in your vegetable garden, they could stunt your plants because they take a lot of nitrogen from the soil as they're breaking down. So they're better left in the aisles. The next thing that Tim wanted to know is, when do you apply mulch in your garden? So like you've already seen, my garden is actually always covered in mulch. All my beds all year round have mulch in them. The only time that I have mulch that I've scraped away is when I'm gonna plant seeds. So if I'm waiting for some seeds to germinate, then I have an area in my garden that doesn't have any mulch in it. But once those seeds germinate and start to grow for a little while, I'll make sure I mulch between all the rows so that I don't have any bare soil, so that I don't have any weeds. So really the answer is the best time to apply mulch is to always have mulch on your garden. That's my technique, and I do very little weeding throughout the season because I have very little bare soil. So I'll give you a little tour around some of my beds just so you can see how I'm using the mulch. This bed is a good example of how I use mulch. So I planted some different rows of vegetables. I have arugula, 3 rows of spinach, some cilantro, and 2 rows of carrots. This used to have my cold frame on them. And so once things germinated and started growing, you can see I mulched between all the rows. And then in the rest of the bed, you can see that I have an area that I just recently seeded. There's some seedlings coming up. I don't have any mulch over this part of the bed, but as soon as those seedlings grow a little bit bigger, there's some salad mix and radishes and turnips. I'll make sure I get some mulch in between the rows. And this is an example of how I plant seedlings. I have 4 kale and 2 butterhead lettuce, and I've mulched around those seedlings right after planting, so there's no time for weeds to grow. All right, that's what I have to say about mulch. Thank you, Tim, for your question. I hope that helped everyone and it's a little bit more clear about how you can use mulch in your garden so that you do way less weeding. If you want to get one of your questions answered, you can submit your question at the link below this video. Happy gardening!